Welcome to today's Advisor's Assistant webinar. Today we'll be highlighting an integration partner of Advisor's Assistants, MoneyGuidePro. So joining us today is Kevin Hughes from MoneyGuidePro. Welcome, Kevin.
Hello. Thanks, everybody.
Kevin will be showing you how MoneyGuidePro can help you create financial plans that will be more engaging to your clients. But before we look at MoneyGuidePro, let me show you how easy it is to send information from Advisor's Assistant over to MoneyGuidePro. Now, first of all, the data, the information that is going to be sent over to MoneyGuidePro from Advisor's Assistant depends on the type of information that you have in your Advisor's Assistant. If you are mainly tracking contact data, then all of that contact data will be sent, names, addresses. If you are also tracking any products, if you have insurance policies in your Advisor's Assistant or you have investment data in your Advisor's Assistant, then those products will be sent over to MoneyGuidePro. All you have to do is from Advisor's Assistant, first, go to the view screen of the client or prospect for which you are going to create that financial plan. Once that name is on your view screen, all you have to do is over on the toolbar, click on the Partners toolbar, and we have a MoneyGuidePro icon right there. So you just click on the MoneyGuidePro icon, and now Advisor's Assistant is gathering all of James Madison's information and automatically logging you in to MoneyGuidePro. So in Advisor's Assistant, there is a setup where you set up your MoneyGuidePro information so that Advisor's Assistant can log you directly in. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Kevin. So in just a couple seconds here, you'll see a change to Kevin's computer. And Kevin will now demonstrate to you how MoneyGuidePro will help you create the financial plans.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Again, just want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time out of their day to learn a little bit about what MoneyGuidePro has to offer in the way of planning. We're always very excited to work with our integration partners. Advisor's Assistant is one of our better ones, and we really feel we put together a very solid web-based or web service integration, which is really where I think integrations are headed at this day and age. Definitely far more advanced than the old download a file from one system, go into the other system and upload it manually. Those days are certainly going away. So what I wanted to do now is just take everybody through kind of a high-level overview of MoneyGuide. But before I jumped into that, I just wanted to kind of detail some of the things that I was able to get out of Advisor's Assistant when Shannon had clicked on the MoneyGuidePro link and seamlessly launched MoneyGuide. The first thing that you'll notice is that a lot of navigation was bypassed. You'll see here I went straight to the exact same client that she clicked on from Advisor's Assistant. So it's doing a seamless sign-on, but it's doing it to another level. It's actually taking you directly to the client where you want to be in MoneyGuide. So always a nice time saver when you can take advantage of a good seamless sign-on, and this one happens to be a few levels deeper than the normal. The other thing that it's doing is if I click on my client profile, I'll go shoot through here and just show you some of the data that I got. If I click on Resources and click on Investment Assets, these are all the different investment assets that came over from Advisor's Assistant. You can click on the little information icon here, and it'll tell you where it came from. So if you were to, like, say, manually enter an account in MoneyGuide, you'd see that it came, you manually entered it. In this case, it's telling you that we were able to get that from Advisor's Assistant. The other nice thing about this is when I click on the account itself, it's also passing me all the positions and, of course, the values for every single holding in this account. So the nice thing about that is this even saves you more time, because when I get ticker symbols in MoneyGuide, I'm able to allocate everything automatically based on a Morningstar feature that we offer inside our software. So what we do once we get that is I'm able to quickly go into their current allocation, and just by clicking that MoneyGuidePro icon in an advisor assistant, I'm off and running. I mean, I have their breakdown for how they're currently allocated. I have all their holdings. I'm able to get, like Shannon was saying earlier, all their insurance policies. So, of course, we have a lot of sample data in here, so don't worry about some of the random names that we're using. But you're able to see, if I click on this, here's an insurance policy that, again, came over from an advisor assistant, as well as other types of assets or liabilities. So we use all that, of course, to create a full financial plan. And before I jump into that, I do want to point out that the other thing that we like to do is take a little bit of time with these integrations to make sure that you understand how to really set them up. So if you actually go to my homepage, MoneyGuidePro.com, and click on the Integration Partners link, you'll come to a page where the first icon that I have is Advisor Assistant. You click on that, and I have two about maybe 1 to 2 minute videos here to take you through setting up the integration. It's very painless. I think you can probably do it in less than 5 minutes, and you're completely off and running. So going back into the actual software, I'm going to go ahead and click on a retirement lifestyle plan and just kind of walk you through some of the main features of MoneyGuide and some of the approaches that we do in financial planning. It's a little bit different than what's been done for maybe the past 30 years or so in software. One of the things that we do allow in our system is for an advisor to put in their own market assumptions, or of course you could use historical. We also have a goal wizard where the client can log in themselves with their own unique user ID and password, and they can actually enter all their goals into the software for you. So if you think about it, and here's just some other basic information. This example happens to be somebody who's employed. Of course, the software works just fine on folks that are already retired. But to go back to my point about the goal wizard, if you think about it, here's all my client's goals. I could have given the client the ability to log in and enter all of this via the goal wizard. I could hit the MoneyGuidePro icon inside of Advisor's Assistant and have about 90% of my data populated automatically. So between the integration and our web-based ability to allow client access for some additional data entry, you really get the ability to do a plan in what I think probably about 20 minutes tops. And of course, assuming that you do 2 or 3 and get your feet a little wet in the software. But once you have just a little bit of experience in here, I feel extremely confident with our integrations that you can do plans, very complex, well-crafted financial plans in MoneyGuidePro in about 20 minutes. So on this page, what we're looking at here is really what is very unique about MoneyGuide. We're kind of a hybrid, if you will, between what is considered goal-based financial planning software and detailed cash flow-based software. What we do is we focus on goals as our cash outflows, and we focus on goals and savings in pre-retirement, but then we switch over to cash flow tracking in retirement. And one of the other things that we like to do is give you a nice ability to create a range, or even better yet, have your client create a range for what they feel their goals are. So in this case, I've created a retirement living expense, and I have ideal and acceptable. So my client is able to say, look, ideally, I want about $86,000 to fund all my goals, but I'd be willing to accept $80,000 if all else fails, and I'd ideally like to retire at 63, but I'd be okay working till 65 if I have to. So we feel that we feel very strongly that clients are a lot more able to give you a good range for a goal rather than a set point goal. In other words, I want to retire at 62. I have to have $75,000, and anything outside of that is considered a failure in the plan. We just don't think that's very realistic. The other thing that we let you do is create all sorts of different unique goals for your client. We think it certainly adds to a much better conversation in the planning process, and certainly opens it up for clients to dream a little bit more about this and not just think of retirement as one giant expense. So in this case, I've used the college plan. I brought in a college goal where I'm funding the kid to go to school for 5 years at Virginia Tech. We are able to pull in costs for we're able to pull in all the costs for pretty much any school in the country. And the other thing that I have here are various goals, like a car goal happening every 5 years. I have travel happening for the first 20 years in retirement. So when you end up looking at, say, a distribution graph inside of the software, It looks a lot different than a detailed cash flow based system. In detailed cash flow, you're usually looking at something like that. One gigantic goal increased by inflation every year. We don't really feel that is a realistic way people spend money in retirement, so we give you the ability to show that. So here I have, my car goal coming in every couple of years. I have travel coming to an end here. I have my college goal kicking in, and I have a few other goals throughout that are all broken down on the timeline below as well. So we have all sorts of different goals inside of the software you can choose from. If we've missed anything, we always have the other goal where you can basically create your own custom goals if you want to. Or if your client has something off the grid that they want in there, you could certainly do that. I did get a question about how I got to that chart a moment ago. That chart is located right here at the bottom right. If you just click Goal Graph, it'll take you right to that graph, which is basically a graph just showing distribution of these goals over time. The next step is to move into risk tolerance. So the software comes with a very basic 6-question profile. Your client would enter this on the data gathering forms that we have available for you, and then you would just simply plug it in. And of course we go to the resources. So I was showing you some of this earlier. The other things that you would want to manually enter would be things like retirement income. So this is where like pensions would come into play. This is where you would enter obviously Social Security, rental property income. Of course, you would also enter investment assets. We certainly handle stock options and restricted stock. Again, I think almost all of this stuff is going to come over, unless it's a prospect, it's going to come over from advisor assistant. You would enter other assets if you want like a house to fund goals. Very easy to enter that. If you want to use some of that equity from the sale of their house maybe down the road to fund goals, or if they want to sell a business at some point and bring that money into the plan. Very easy to model that type of scenario. Again, the insurance plans are going to, or policies are going to come over from advisor assistant. Of course, if you want to add anything manually, you can do that too. There's a question I just got about long-term care. Absolutely, you want to put in all your insurance policies if you're trying to do any kind of risk management. We do handle risk management in our software. We do life insurance needs analysis, disability, and long-term care, and I'll show you those very shortly. And of course, we also would want to enter our liabilities if it was a prospect and they didn't come over from advisor assistant. And that really feeds us into our current net worth statement. So the current net worth statement is basically, it's a net worth statement. So it's going to look at all their assets, look at their liabilities, and tell you the difference. But you can always go in and look at more detail if you want just by simply scrolling over the account. So that whole part of MoneyGuide is really the data entry side of things. It can be that simple. The goal-based hybrid approach can make the planning process so much more streamlined for you while still taking care of the detailed calculations that are certainly required to have a well-crafted financial plan for your client. The next sections are not data entry relevant, but they are certainly interactive with the client. So if I were to scroll down, I'm able again to see their current allocation based off of how all the accounts that I'm getting from advisor assistant and the ticker symbols that they're passing us. And then the next step is just to review their target portfolio. And let me pull up my highlighter real quick. And what we're looking at here is just simply where the client currently is, where they scored on their risk tolerance questionnaire, and of course where we're trying to move them towards if we are trying to reallocate the client. And the comparison section over to the left just shows you the difference in these two allocations. So basically it sets your current situation, or your allocation anyway, right next to the target allocation. Shows you the differences in return and risk. So even though we're decreasing their return a little bit in this recommendation, we're actually moving them into a substantially more efficient portfolio when you take a look at the differences in standard deviation changes. So if I were to scroll down, we also show you what you need to do to move around from point A to point B. So it shows the difference in dollar amounts that you need in the asset classes, and then at the bottom it shows you, you need to increase cash by 1,000, same in short-term bonds by 73,000, and decrease large cap value stocks by 65,000, and so on and so forth. So we're basically doing asset allocation at an asset class level. The next section is the what if worksheet. Now this is really where a lot of the detail comes into play, and we take a look at our client's results. So what we're looking at here is our client's ability to fund all these goals. So my first section on the left, I list out all my needs, my wants, and my wishes. And then I show you the results of them being able to basically fund all these goals given their current scenarios. So their current scenario would be like how they're currently allocated, their goals at their ideal amount, using whatever resources we have available to fund everything. So, in other words, let's look at actually how they fared out. So this first calculation method here is average return. So nothing new here. It's been done like this for years. We're just assuming they get their average return every single year. If they were to do that, they'd fund 100% of their needs, 100% of their wants, and 41% of their wishes. So that's okay, and of course, it's average return, so basically the only thing you can assume there is that the results aren't going to be the same in real life. We know that they're not going to get their average return every year, and the way those returns fluctuate throughout time will have a significant impact on the plan. So it's a great starting point, great to utilize that for generating cash flow statements and things like that. But as far as really standing behind and feeling confident about the results, definitely have to take it with a grain of salt. So that's why we bring in stress tests. So the first stress test is bad timing. Well, what we do in bad timing is we put 2 really bad negative years back to back for their first and second year of retirement. So obviously if that were to happen, they still do good with their needs, but their wants start coming up short, and we have 0 luck with their wishes. Now down here is Monte Carlo. So this is just basically saying, if we run the equivalent of 10,000 completely random return sequence trials of this plan, less than 40% of them were able to fund all of these goals 100%. So the question, of course, lies is, how can we make this situation better? Well, there's all sorts of different things you can do in a what-if scenario, not to mention that you can actually bring in 4 what-if scenarios side by side and make all kinds of different recommendations, and each one right on the same page, and see how they affect your client's end result. So if I were to scroll down, I have access to every single assumption in this entire plan, and I can change all of them. I don't have to go recreate an entire new plan to do this. So the first thing that you'll see are some red dots. What I did here was just recommended a fairly aggressive portfolio pre-retirement, and then when they retire, I cut them back to something a little bit more conservative. I could scroll down further and manually make changes to things like retirement age. What if they retire at 66 instead of 65? Or what if they take, $75,000 instead of $86,000 a year? How would that how would that kind of change affect this client's end result? And then you just simply hit the calculate button and it shows you. There's all sorts of different assumptions as well as goal strategies that you can do. You can do lump sum pension versus payout. You can do like what if they wait to take Social Security and get a bigger benefit from it. Or what if we implemented some strategies like recommending an immediate annuity? Or what if we converted some of their qualified money to an annuity with a guarantee, or converted some of it to a Roth? You can do all that right on this page and quickly see how that's going to affect your client's results. And that's all great. One of the things that I like, because I'll be the first to admit, I'm kind of lazy. That takes a little bit of time. It doesn't take much time, but it takes more time than it needs to. One of the features that we have that I feel is truly revolutionary is SuperSolve. And that's this button right down here. What SuperSolve does is it basically recommends a plan for your client automatically, and does that by optimizing their goals. So I'm going to click SuperSolve, and now what the software is going to ask me is, what are you shooting for in Monte Carlo? In this case, I'll just run with the system default. I could change that if I wanted to. And I'm going to ask the software to basically run a bunch of iterations and tell me what's required to change in this plan to get 82% probability of success, and do your best to stay within what the client feels is ideal and acceptable. So it does take a second to run. It's a huge calculation. It looks at the ranges for the goals. It takes in federal, state tax code, RMD. It's trying to prevent early withdrawal penalties. And it comes back with a solution for you. The first solution, it says, guess what? We got you 83%. How do we do it? Well, here's what you should change all of your goals to. All of these values here, and then you're good to go. We also give you the results for setting all their goals at ideal and setting all their goals at acceptable. And the nice thing about that is we're actually putting their ideal and acceptable ranges and able to show you that the middle ranges there's no recommendation here outside of what the client feels is truly ideal and acceptable. So then we would just scroll down and hit Update What If. And let me let your screen catch up here. So what we have now is a plan that we should feel confident about. So I went in the click of 3 buttons, I took this situation from here to here, something that I should feel a lot better about, and more importantly, the client should feel good about. Clients want to know one thing at the end of the day. Am I going to run out of money? Can I fund my goals? That's exactly what we're addressing inside of MoneyGuide, and we're doing it in a way that's extremely easy for them to understand. To give you an example, let me present kind of the output of MoneyGuide. We have 2 different ways to do this. One is actually online, which you could do remotely with the client. You could, of course, project this onto a big screen if you want to. Or, of course, you could always just sit there right at your computer and walk them through it. This is an online presentation. Just takes them through all their preferences, and I'll just skip around on some of the slides. Shows them, like, here's your ideal and acceptable range for all your goals. That's where we'll start. Then we go in to address the bottom line. You're going to run out of money or not. And MoneyGuide, this is where we also give you the opportunity to explain these calculation methods so clients actually understand them. So we can bring in bad timing. I did have a question from Josh about, can we change the bad timing years? Absolutely. You can certainly go in and make them not as bad if you want, or you can make them really bad. If you want to go in and make 50% or even worse, you're more than welcome to do that. We just bring in these stress tests one by one to give you an opportunity to explain everything. And then we bring in our situations, or our scenarios, if you will. So on top, I'm just showing my current situation, where if James and Dolly retire at 65 and 63 respectively, they spend $2.6 million throughout the course of their plan. They would, if they continue only saving $2,500 a year and leave their portfolio like it is, there's some concern here. They don't have a very good probability of funding all these goals. So we can bring in our recommendations down below, and we can show them very quickly that you implement these changes into your plan, and your probability is substantially higher. I also have a feature called concentrated positions. Again, I want to drive this home that one of the things that we are huge on in MoneyGuide is educating your client. At the end of the day, we really believe out here at MoneyGuide that planning isn't about vast amount of detail. Planning is about a communication process with your client and building a better relationship. There's no way to predict the future, so we really believe that if we can give you as many opportunities to educate your client on things that might happen, it only makes you look better and build more of their trust. So what I'm doing on this screen is just going in and saying, oh, hey, by the way, James Madison, I found out that this security that you're invested in here actually represents 10% of your entire portfolio. So what happens if you lose half of that? Of course, even worse, what happens if you lose all of it? In this case, it's not that big a deal, but sometimes you'll have situations where if they lose all of that account, it's going to crush their probability by 50%. So we bring in this nice little slide right here, just kind of representing what happened with Enron. Everybody thought that was the best company in the world, and it didn't turn out to be. So to give you an opportunity to educate your client when they say they'll never ride a stock out to the end, here's what happened. Here's the price of Enron, and here's where everybody sold it. So everybody held on to that thing until it was worthless. And it just goes to show that there's obviously some emotional attachment to the investing process. The other thing that we like to bring in is something that we call the loss cushion. The loss cushion goes in and says, okay, well, we have these ideal and acceptable ranges. What's your probability look like if we have to settle for all your goals at their acceptable amount? And then we take it one step further. We say, okay, if you're able to settle for all your goals at their acceptable, how much money can you lose today and still be in your confidence zone? So this client could lose 38% of their portfolio today, and assuming they're okay with settling for their acceptable goals if they had to, they'd still be in their confidence zone. And to put that at 38% into perspective, down below we show a bear market test, where we basically stand this up and say, look, the very worst loss since the Great Depression, or the worst bear market, happened between, in this case, 07 and 09, and was 39%. So they can almost withstand another bear market like we just had. So again, very nice stress test to address that issue where your client's scared half to death of the market and still wants to put everything in cash. This just says, look, you don't do that. You can handle more loss. If you do move to cash, you're guaranteed that you're definitely not going to get that money back. Inside the numbers is just a section where we go in and explain our stress tests visually, like bad timing, for example. Here we went in and we have a -12 and a negative 19% return starting right at the beginning of retirement, followed by their average return the rest of the way, and we're able to see that they don't do great, but they still fund their goals. And we have a slide explaining Monte Carlo and what's happening with that calculation as well. And I'm just letting your screen catch up now. And the last page of this would be the action items. So just what does the client actually need to do to get started today? Now, if I wanted to address risk management, I certainly could. I have life insurance needs analysis. I can go in and see where the client currently is. Let me pull up the highlighter. So in this case, if James were to die today, what does Dolly need to cover up till 93? They currently have $350,000. Again, we have a lot of test sample data on this plan, and so they're technically, in this one example here, they are overinsured. Very rare that you ever see that, though. We also handle long-term care. So in this case, our client was pretty fair off. What we're looking at with these bars are where the client's portfolio is if nothing happens and they don't go into long-term care. The blue one is showing what happens to their portfolio if they go into long-term care and do not have a policy, and the purplish color here represents having a policy in place, so you can see that the portfolio doesn't get damaged as much. Usually when you pull up this analysis, you'll see these blue bars going down and turning into orange, representing that their portfolio completely gets annihilated if they go into long-term care. We also handle basic estate planning as well. So if you're trying to determine if there's a need for very high-level estate planning, we can do that very easily for you. You can go in and look at the effects of a bypass trust, an ILET, or gifting strategy, and see how those will help fund value to the heirs of the estate. So we're able to quickly go in and see the federal estate tax and what would happen if they implemented a bypass trust, for example. This would add an additional $1.5 million in value to the heirs of this estate. We also have things like a flow chart. And this is nice to help explain a visual layout of where money is going at the time of death. And of course, we handle paper reports too. We have the presentation is basically a spitting image of what I was showing you a moment ago in the online presentation. So if you did want to, say, follow an online presentation up with a paper report, you have basically the exact same report ready to go, and you can just email it off to them. And these do create PDFs as well, so you can save them to your hard drive if you want. Obviously, they're saved to our servers. Again, we're completely web-based, so. Just to give you an idea of the output, I'll skip the fund disclosure information here and let your screen catch up. So here's an overview page, all their preferences, very similar to what I was showing you a moment ago in the online version. And I'm just skipping around here, finding the most relevant pages to show you. Here are the plan differences and the recommended plan. And of course, last but not least, the action items they need to take to get started. So in this case, consider increasing taxable additions by $4,000 and reallocate accordingly. The last thing I want to show you here is just that we do have access for a client. So I had mentioned that a moment ago. And let me just pull up the right site here. So the client can log in, and I'm basically just showing you the client interface right now. And we have a few different things that you can do for them. The first thing they'll see when they log in, typically, is this thing called the snapshot. And I'm pulling it up now for you. Now the snapshot basically just shows where they are with their current goals, shows them their net worth, where again they can log over and see all the accounts, and shows them their allocation breakdown too. So the software cost for MoneyGuide is $12.95 annually per advisor, which it does include access for an assistant for data entry purposes. We do offer a discount for any advisor assistant user, and it's $200 off our current list price. It ends up bringing the cost to $10.95. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Shannon. Maybe we can start answering some of these questions that I was unable to handle while I was going through everything.
Thank you, Kevin. That was great. Just really quickly, what I want to point out, again, if you have a question, you can submit it through the control panel. I know we have some questions to answer, and I just wanted to give you some contact information while we are sorting through those questions, so that if you would like to contact Kevin directly with your questions, here is all of the contact information. If you have any questions for me also, please do, you can just email me directly. I have my email address up there also. And I know we had quite a few questions come in, so I think most of those were for you, Kevin, but really quickly, I did see a question about feeding information from MoneyGuidePro back into Advisor's Assistant. And we are exploring how we may be able to enhance the integration between the two software programs. So we, of course, are always open to knowing what people would like to see done, and we take a look at what makes sense based on the two types of programs as to how the integration will work. But we are looking at enhancing it, and of course we will let you know when we have more enhancement to the integration. So you ready to answer some questions, Kevin?
Yep, absolutely. So I have them all here. I'll just read them off and go through them one by one. Let's see, a question from Mark about if a policy is entered manually by the client, will updates occur in real-time values, like example, cash value on a whole life policy? Excellent question. We do offer as an add-on product, Cash Edge for account aggregation. It does exactly this. It's not included in MoneyGuide. It's just not a service that all of our advisors want, so we give you the option. But you can certainly purchase Cash Edge, and it'll do not just cash value on whole life policy, but it'll pull in liabilities and the whole 9 yards, insurance policies as well, and keep it all up to date, and especially like held away assets too. Question is about, was this recorded? Absolutely was recorded. So that'll be available in the next couple of days. Question more technical from Jamie. Oh, never mind, said they left, so I'll bypass that one. Let's see, one from John. Let's see, I think this is in reference to the ticker lookup feature when you're entering accounts. The question is, how does that ticker lookup feature work with variable annuity sub-accounts? Excellent question. A lot of those sub-accounts are proprietary ticker symbols usually that aren't out on the open market. Obviously, Morningstar doesn't have those, but if there's a handful of sub-accounts that you find yourself using quite a bit, we do have an option for you to go into MoneyGuide and just basically set up ticker symbols with how you want them allocated, or if there is a fake ticker symbol that you use in these products or a CUSIP number, even if it's not on the market, but we're able to get that from Advisor's Assistant, you can set it up to allocate however you want in the going forward. So it's like a one-time setup, and then you're pretty much set to go. Let's see here. All right, got a question from Mark. Oh, okay, this is the one addressing information going back to Advisor Assistant. We currently don't have that. A question about where we're getting inflation from. A few different, and this is from Josh, a few different ways to answer that. The software uses our default historical settings. We get that from history. So various indexes on all our asset classes for asset class returns, and I think the default for historical inflation rate is set from the historical period anyways, from 1970 through 2009. So I think it's set at like 4.55. That's pretty high, I think, in most people's opinion, these days anyway. And you can kind of set inflation to whatever you want. Or you can, again, put in your own market assumptions and inflation rates. I'm reading a question right now from Douglas. On long-term care, do you handle the partnership plans where the client's assets are protected no matter how long the care is needed, even after the long-term care insurance is expanded? Honestly, Douglas, I don't know the answer to that one. I'll have to shoot you an email afterwards. I'll just need to chat with my support folks about that one. Another question from Josh. If a client is a no-risk client, is that taken into account in recommendations for long-term care and life insurance in regards to their goals of lifestyle and wealth transfer? Well, if there was if the calculations are saying they don't need life insurance or long-term care, it's going to show that in the graphs. It's going to show you that, look, you're not really going to get much out of life insurance or long-term care here. Feel free to email me if you want to expand on that. I can get somebody from support to answer some of those questions too. Question about customizing reports from Joseph. You can create all sorts of different templates. We have reports that are 5 pages long. We have reports that are 150 pages long. Entirely up to you on how detailed you want to get with these things. You can't customize them from the perspective of going in and typing whatever you want in them. That makes the FINRA clean letter process extremely difficult, so we don't have it. But you can customize them with your own logos and things like that. Another question from Molly. Is there a preferred Adobe reader to have to run the PDF reports? I've been receiving read errors when opening a plan. It's usually a browser-related issue if you're getting errors popping up when opening up a plan. It's generating a PDF. I got one of these last week with Firefox. I just uninstalled Firefox and reinstalled it, and it seemed to solve the problem. You can add, this is a question from John, you can add customization to disclosures if you want to put some extra lines in there and things like that. A question from Zach. Could I create a what-if scenario where something like a long-term care policy is included so that they can see how that policy impacts the rest of the goal attainment? Excellent question, and the answer is absolutely yes. When you're on the long-term care section, you can go in, and one of the assumptions down below asks you, do you want to go ahead and just create a goal to fund this long-term care policy? And then when you go back to the what-if worksheet, it shows you that, and it shows you how it impacted their probability. Got a question from Shell. Do you have any fact finders made that we can use to, at an initial meeting with a client so we can take time later to input the data to present the findings and at a later point? Absolutely. We have all sorts of different length data gathering forms. So if you want to get really detailed, we have that available. We have fact finders that focus more on goals. We have just 2-page fact finders, but either way, we got you taken care of there. Oh, wow. Excellent question from Molly. What is your opinion about Cash Edge? I'm going to give my opinion based on account aggregation in general. It doesn't matter if it's by accounts, doesn't matter if it's Cash Edge, doesn't matter if it's Yodlee like through Mint. This technology is using screen scraping. So the issues that you're always going to find with any account aggregator are, what if the client logs in and changes their password? Well, that annihilates the linkage to be able to keep data up to date in your aggregation software. The question is, how good can these aggregation softwares catch when these errors happen and notify the right people? I think CashEdge did an update, or they did an update about 2 months ago that really addressed this issue fairly well and gives a nice dashboard for what errors are existing for the advisor, automatically sends emails to the client to remind them to log in and update their new password in CashEdge. Definitely not definitely not something that's perfect. I will be the first to admit, but I think it's come a heck of a long way, and I think a lot of the accounts out there work great on it. Just you're always going to deal with that issue of clients changing passwords. There's no real way around that, unfortunately. Kind of a question from Jeremy. What is the interface between AA and MGP? It's a web service integration, so it utilizes web services versus manual downloads and exports. It basically sends a signal out to AA, would send a signal to MoneyGuide via web services, passing an XML with encrypted data in it that we then uncrypt on our end and push in there. It passes us assets, liabilities, passes us insurance policies, any types of other assets. If you want to go into more depth on that, I'd probably just give me a call later. I'm not exactly sure what the specifics are in that question. Question from Evan about pricing. Is it $10.95 for one user? What about multiple users? Our software is licensed at the advisor level. Each advisor needs their own license. Data assistants, paraplanners, all those folks can get access at no charge to enter plans for an advisor. And for advisor assistant users, it is $10.95 each. Question from William. Do you have any pre-approved solicitation pieces? Excellent, excellent question. We do. We have some brochures, like client marketing brochures to really promote planning that you can use our PDF and email out if you want. We even have email scripts to send you. We have PowerPoints available to where if you want to host a seminar to existing clients or prospects, we have the whole PowerPoint laid out with script and everything to really promote why a client should have a plan in place. I got a question from Greg. A question about just how to link up Advisor Assistant to MoneyGuide. If you go to the MoneyGuidePro homepage, www.moneyguidepro.com, click Integration Partners up at the top. You'll get a bunch of logos on a screen. Click the Advisor Assistant logo, and there's two about 1-minute videos that walk you through exactly how to set up the integration.
And Greg, our tech support can also help you get started with that. So don't forget, you can call the Advisor's Assistant technical support, and they can help you get the setup going to get your data over to MoneyGuidePro.
Got a question from Harvey about they use Allbridge, a portfolio management software, a pretty popular one out there. They also use NetX360. And of course they use Advisor Assistant. So which is the best, most logical way to set this stuff up? I think that the best way to do this would be to actually link Advisor Assistant and Allbridge up. We pull accounts from Allbridge, so if your client logs in from our homepage, or I'm sorry, if your client logs in to look at their accounts, we'll update it automatically. So usually what I recommend in that case is to link your investment assets up through Allbridge and then use Advisor Assistant as a seamless sign-on, as well as pulling over all the other stuff that Allbridge doesn't touch, like insurance policies and liabilities and things like that. And feel free to give me a call if you want as well. I'll give out my contact info in just a second here. I do a lot with that. I'd be happy to help you out. A question from Douglas about, is it generic enough to use overseas in New Zealand? We do have some settings where you can adjust like tax and inflation options. All the products, though, as far as tax account types, are American type of thing. I mean, we have a lot of people that use it across the world, just knowing that no matter how ungeneric it might be, it's still assumption-based planning in the long term, so they use it as a conversation piece, but we don't have a ton. We certainly don't have a New Zealand version, unfortunately. Yeah, and the question from Josh about can you just adjust the inflation setting? Absolutely. I'm just reading a question real quick from Liz. Question about they get Money Guide through a platform with their broker-dealer. Are they able to integrate Advisor Assistant into an existing Money Guide Pro license, or would we have to get a whole new subscription? You shouldn't need a whole new subscription. You should be able to simply just watch those videos from our integration partners page. And basically, when you launch Money Guide from the first time from Advisor Assistant, we give you an interface screen that says, do you have an existing account? Enter your existing user ID and password, or of course you could create a free trial if you wanted to. In your case, just enter your existing user ID. You do want to contact MoneyGuidePro to get a number that you need in the setup process called the MoneyGuidePro Institution ID. Just email support@moneyguidepro.com, and they'll be able to give you that three-digit number in a matter of minutes. Question from Dawn, can assets be imported from OmniSource? I'm not familiar with OmniSource, but then it says Albridge right afterwards, so I'm thinking that might just be a rebranded name for Albridge. Yeah, you certainly can. Can 401k values from accounts that we don't manage be imported? Yeah, that's, again, just going back to the Cash Edge feature, which you can also get Cash Edge through Albridge. So you have two options for that. I always recommend going for the one that's cheapest. Question from Don. Are there a limit to the number of plans you can do? Absolutely not. It is licensed per advisor, but as far as any individual advisor is concerned, you're allowed to have as many plans as you want. So we encourage anybody to do things like prospecting. We don't want to discourage you from prospecting by putting a client cap on there. Also, another question from Don, a very good one. Also, does the client have to enter personal information, Social Security in particular, on the web-based version that the client would access? Truthfully, we prefer not even to have Social Security numbers. The only personal info that I even really need in my system is a first, a last name, and a birth date. Other than that, I don't need anything. And you don't really need to even call their accounts anything but John's 401k or Mary's brokerage account. You don't actually have to have their specific account numbers that come over from Advisor Assistant. Question about can we create IPS statements? No, we don't do that in MoneyGuide. We do integrate with IPS Advisor Pro. They do a phenomenal job of investment policy statements, and we're able to push all sorts of data over to there to help create those statements even quicker. Question about refinancing homes and eliminating debt roll down. We don't really touch on that as much in MoneyGuide. We're more focused on like long-term planning versus like short-term cash flow planning. So our plans are like 30, 40-year long types of plans, so we don't address those. We do have a budget, however, so if you are trying to help find ways to save money for your client, we can do that. We just don't require it in a plan. Question from Steve regarding how we link with Morningstar Advisor Workstation. Basically, like let's say, for example, you wanted to work on a plan for, John Madison. If you were an advisor assistant, you'd launch MoneyGuide from there. You'd be at John Madison's page. We'd have all their investment assets. I have a link in MoneyGuide that basically lets you create the snapshot report automatically based off whatever accounts you have in the plan in MoneyGuide. So basically, like when a click of a button, you can run the snapshot report very quickly, and it'll populate all the assets that you have in the plan. Or you can launch Advisor Workstation seamlessly, and it'll pass all those plan accounts over. So if there's other reports you want to run, you can. I'll skip that question. Let's see here, and I think. Last question from Shell. Is it possible to explore this software before purchasing? Excellent question. Absolutely, yes. What I would highly encourage you to do is if you go to our homepage, MoneyGuidePro.com, just click the free trial link, and it's actually a full version of the software, so you're actually able to set up the integration while you're trialing the software. Full version, use it on real clients, be our guest. We'd be happy for you to make some money while you're testing it out. But that looks like the end of the questions.
Yes, it does look like that is the end. If any questions come through afterwards, then we will definitely try to catch those and email answers to you. But of course, you can email Kevin directly if you have any questions. His email is here on the screen. I want to thank everybody for attending, and especially thank Kevin for joining us today and showing us how great Money Guide Pro is.
And thanks again for the opportunity today, Shannon. It's greatly appreciated.
You're welcome. We will be emailing out a link to the recording as soon as we close everything out here. So watch for that email, and I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Goodbye, everybody.